Hi there, it's Maria Paula again. But now I want to talk about the techniques and strategies I have used throughout my life for communicating in English, which, as you may remember, is my L2. I think I have had contact with many techniques and strategies that have helped me to communicate, along with others that haven't been really meaningful to me. So, ahead of this, I will include some examples of experiences that help me to analyze which strategies have been good and why, and which ones have been great in my learning of English. Firstly, I want to mention the techniques that haven't had much impact in my communicative competence, and the only one that comes to my mind is translation, which is part of the cognitive strategy. I think for beginners, translation is mandatory, but the more you learn the L2, the less you should use the L1 during the learning process. I remember in school, I used to take notes in Spanish about English vocabulary, but it was ridiculous because at the end of each term, I had to look for all the words in my notebook as none of them stayed in my memory when trying to communicate. I had the meaning written in the notebook, but if I needed to speak or write something afterwards using the words, I couldn't do anything without my notes. On the other hand, the strategies that have been incredibly useful to my communicative competence are the cultural, social, and the memory ones. And I want to talk about the cultural firstly because it's the one that I think has made the difference when talking about communicating with an English basis. I have learned that communicating through a new language is all about seeing the world from a different perspective, which is awesome, but also very demanding because you're supposed to settle new cultural bases in your brain. And at least in my case, the way of learning those new structures has been through the involving with the culture. For example, when being in classes of English in the university, I've seen idioms and expressions that can't be explained very clearly, but that I have heard before in American shows or songs on the internet. This previous knowledge of the world helped me to understand better the meaning because I have a cultural baggage from what I've seen in the series or heard it in the songs. I think this strategy is a mix between understanding the culture and the context of it. And although I believe it requires time to adapt to the new manners, once you get the hang of it, you start to understand better as well as reproduce the new words, idioms, or expressions in your own context. But in the L2, which is actually being able to communicate. The social strategy has really helped my communicative competence as well, because I think practicing the language has made me challenge myself, especially in early stages. I've always loved English since I was very little, but it took me a while to get used to it, and at the very beginning, I didn't really stand out in my classes. So when it was time to prepare activities like a dialogue or something with my classmates, I kinda get nervous about it. But as I had a duty to plan the task with them, I used to take the responsibility of a leader. And by the interaction that a leader is supposed to have with everybody, I ended up learning from others and communicating better than before. I remember the scaffolding in an excellent group I had for a class while working in a project for the school. We were working in business vocabulary, and I was very confused with the meaning of some words, so at the moment of a speak, I didn't make myself understand. But my partners corrected me before the presentation, and I didn't only understand the meaning of the words better, but also had a great grade. This means to me that interacting with others has made me try to go further of what I know, because in the preparation of the assignment, we could correct among ourselves instead of having the pressure at the moment of presenting it. Another important strategy in the development of my communication in my L2 is the memory one, referring especially to mnemonics. I love this strategy because it reminds me on how my mom taught me to study back when I was little. And that's because when I struggled to learn something, she used to mimic it and made me laugh. And then she said something like, "You'll remember my faces when you're in your exam." And it was true. I remember everything as she had me evoking things from when I was studying. This is something that I still use to communicate in English, generally when writing, because at that point, I have the time to recall my memories and use the things that I have learned. For example, I remember something funny when a teacher of mine explained what show off means, and I always use that memory to get the meaning of the phrasal verb and writing something with it. Mnemonics turns out great to me in speeches as well, because as my memories are sort of alive in my brain, I don't really have to think that much in the meaning of a word, as I simply have that memory in my mind. As I use this strategy since I am little, nowadays I'm aware that when I'm speaking, I am also thinking of many things at the same time. And the result is good, as I always find synonyms to say what I mean. Being a teacher to me doesn't only imply to teach properly, but helping students to understand how they learn. This means that when I'm a teacher, I don't want just to give people the knowledge, but also to teach them how did they acquire that knowledge. I think each person has his own strategies to learn a language, and that's what my focus would be. If I have students that are already aware of what their best strategies are for them to learn, my duty will be to potentiate those strategies for those students to improve their learning techniques. If the case is that the students haven't realized what the best strategy is for them, my duty will become to explore among the existing techniques until they feel they have found the best one. This sounds kind of hard to do, but I think it can be done by exploring the different teaching methods with the students. I will try as long as I can to teach them the things by different ways and using the best methods depending on each topic. This way, it will be easier for them and for me to realize what the best strategies and techniques are that help them to learn and communicate better.